are other things that are more important. So you must remember that if you do not have a certain twinge or fear, then there's something seriously wrong. You don't blindly go and charge into something. You must be prepped. You must know what you're getting into. You must be clear in your mind as to what it is I want to achieve and how I intend going about. Which all that I've said so far actually has got, you can wash it all away. I'll give you two rules that I follow. Rule 13 and Rule 14. And this is not original. It is a person whom I admire. I happen to hear him speak. He's no more now. He's a very, 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 very big guy. And I had the good fortune of seeing him and hearing him in Singapore. Rule 13 is, when put in a position of responsibility, take charge. When put in a position of command, take charge. And Rule 14 is, always do what is right. Don't do what is popular. Don't do what is going to get you promoted. All these are signs of leadership. All of us are leaders. Right now you're leading one person, yourself. Very soon you will have to lead two, then you will lead three, then you will lead a multitude of people. All your character and the way you come across and your ethics and your belief will inspire the people who work for you, or they will despise you for not having that character, that extra quality. Just as you are looking for leaders to look up to, similarly, at some stage in your life, people will be looking up to you and looking for certain inherent qualities in you. What is it that makes you tick? What would you do given this circumstance? Would you do the right thing? Always do the right thing, whatever the circumstance. All right? Now, feedback from you guys. Quiz. Akshay.
So nowadays, most of the parents are encouraging their children to work hard and apply for these competitive exams, these government jobs. Of course, they are right on their part, because the kind of job security and the packages which the government is offering these days are truly remarkable. But the kind of work in which you will be engaged may not be of your interest. Whereas, on the other hand, if we talk about the private companies, private jobs, wherein the task may be of your interest, but at the same time, these companies are not offering very, very handsome packages to the freshers. And of course, the job security is comparatively less. Now, sir, we are stuck in between. We people are undecisive. Actually, we want to put all the eggs in one basket, but unfortunately, we can't do that. So now, how can we tackle such a situation?
My answer to that is very simple. Always do what you like, what you love doing. That's important. Money is not important. Money is not important, because what you start with today, as I mentioned to you, both my sons are working. They're not getting fantastic salaries, and they had campus recruitment, and they had some phenomenal offers. But I told them, I said, what is it? Both are economic honors graduates. And I said, what is it you want to do? The elder one got his job because he interned with an organization, and they only take postgraduates, they only take masters. But they were so impressed with him that they offered him a job. He was actually going to join the Delhi School of Economics. And he was so enamored and taken up with this, he threw that up. And I, to my regret, because I said, look, this is a moment in time, get it out of the way. You must get a master's degree. It's very important to have a piece of paper, the MBA. At least it was. I don't know whether it is still true. Today the job market is so tight, it is more important to get a job and consider qualification later after you have experience. But be that as it may, do what you want, do what you enjoy. Now getting him, winkling the elder one away to do his MBA is very difficult, because he loves doing what he's doing. And there are two schools of thought. Is it important to do the MBA right now, or is it better that he does the MBA 5? So I negotiated with him. As I negotiate, I don't tell my sons what to do. I negotiate with them. Everything is negotiation. They live at home with me, so I have to be very circumspect. I don't dictate to them. So I told him, I said, look, do the GMAT, because at least that has a 5-year window. You can decide where you want. Wherever you want to go, I'll send you. That's not a problem. Do it. I'm not so sure that I need to do my MBA now. I may do it 5 years, 10 years hence, etc., etc. And I thought about it. I said, yes, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is more important to establish yourself. But I do know one thing, and this is why I've seen with my peers also. Not everyone had the good fortune to join a grade A organization as their first organization. But many of them who started in more humble organizations have all bubbled to the top because they loved what they were doing. They were dedicated to what they were doing. Don't compromise on that. Job safety and job security is one factor, but that is probably your mother, your father, your grandfather, your grandmother talking, or your uncle or your elder brother talking and telling you. Yeah, you join the civil services or whatever it is, you will get a good bride, your dowry factor will go soaring higher, sarkari naukri and all that has certain value addition, etc., etc. But do what you want to do. It doesn't matter what you do. Even if you're, like my maths teacher used to tell me in school, he used to tell me, because I was very sloppy in maths in the sense that I never studied for it. It used to come naturally to me. So he used to tell me, he said, you can do so well, you can get a distinction. Why don't you work? So he said, well, very often he'd be so annoyed with me, he'd say, chole bech. So when I did get a distinction in my higher secondary, he gave me a box of sweets instead of the other way around, because he said that was your full potential. That is what you could have achieved. Why you why you were tooling around in school, beat me. But we used to call him Chachaji. So my point here is that, look, whatever you do, whether it is selling chole, you can end up a Haldiram. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you have the passion and the drive for what you do. I decided that computers was my calling, and I've been in the computer or the technology industry almost all my life. Even in Coke, I was the CIO, the Chief Information Officer for Asia Pacific. It was still a technology-oriented job. But point was that that is what I chose over banking, which was a walk-in for me, because this was my passion. I don't think when I look back, I don't think I regret it. There were hard times, there were difficult times, there were periods of uncertainty, and when you come to the age of 40, you look back and say, what have I done, where am I? That's when you reinvent yourself, and you decide, okay, what is my next step going to be? You plan it. So then, at that point in time, I was in charge of Oracle for Southeast Asia, India, and Philippines, out of Singapore. I lived in Singapore for almost 20 years. You reinvent yourself. So always do what you desire to do. Now, I wouldn't offer the same advice to women, because you have a very, very difficult life balancing act of mother, wife, and professional. So you have to choose wisely, such that whatever you do will still be applicable after a 3, 4, 5-year layover. You want to come back into the job market. So whether you take architecture, which is easy to come back, or do from the house, or insurance, or this, that, and the other, it's entirely up to you. But you have to bear that in mind. And if you want to compete head-on, then you have to remember there are a lot of sacrifices to be made. Are you going to sacrifice marital life? Are you going to sacrifice children? Are you going to give all that up? Are you going to be a spinster? Sounds great. I have an aunt, a very famous doctor, spinster, my mother's only sibling. But I know she loved us like her children, because she didn't have children of her own. She passed away last year. But I know how unhappy she was. Not unhappy, but how she felt that she had missed out on something. So life is a thing of balance, and you must figure out what your balance is to be. I don't know whether I've answered your question or whether I've circumvented it, but What else? Have I? Okay. Passion. Follow your passion. Anybody else?
So I would
Yes, you
like
have.
to ask question.
Yes, please do.
So generally in interviews, the interviewees are asked on where do you see yourself 5 years down the line. So generally, obviously, students just say that I want to be a successful manager. So is it the correct answer, or what exactly the interviewers want us to?
All right. First of all, you have to break down the reason for why they're asking you that question. Why do you think they're asking you that question? That is a very, I've used it off. I've used that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Long before it became fashionable. The reason why you ask it is you want to know whether the person has got a mind that thinks through. Remember what I said, any action you take, don't take it for the sake of courage. You take it with two factors in mind, good judgment and preparation. So if you are taking a course of action and deciding that I want to join this particular industry, this particular profession, you must have a very clear reason as to why you've made that decision. Not because my friends are doing it, not because my parents expect me to do it, not because it makes a lot of money. Because you can sell your soul and make money. That's not the point. What is it that you want to be doing? Where do you want to head? What is, when we drive in our car, we always have a destination in view. But the journey of life is what is so impressive and interesting. The destination is important because without a destination we wouldn't set our, I hate to throw so many things, but I'd like to, there is a tide in the affairs of men which taken at its flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their lives is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a sea are we now afloat, and we must take the tide as it serves or lose our ventures. What does that mean? The tide is important to take a ship out. So if you do not take the tide, your journey will never commence. So it's important to know why you're taking the tide and where your end destination is. Because if you do not, if you miss out on that tide, your journey doesn't start, and that's why you're bound in shallows and in miseries. So you are now on this, at this juncture, and you must take the tide where it serves. So you must know what is your end purpose, what is your end game. Where do you want to be 5 years from now? It's very difficult when your current concern is, will I get a job? What industry should I be in? Which industry will give me the best return or the quickest promotion? These are the things that are the underlying concerns that you have. But you must have, that's a short term, but you must have a long-term view. If you're going for an interview and it is in an industry which you are not really very familiar with, it's important that you study it and find out, is this what I want to engage in? And if I engage in it, where do I foresee myself 5 years, 10 years? Do I want to, or otherwise what will happen is you will just move from that, transit from that industry to another industry, as happens many times. Many people cross-pollinate. But some are logical, like hospitality to travel is quite logical. To credit card, these are logical transitions because they are all interrelated with tourism, with travel, with spend, etc. But you must be clear as to what it is that you wish to achieve. Don't go for the interview if it's not an industry that you're interested in. Don't go just because you want a job. It's better to sit it out than to be, it's like being in an unhappy marriage. Would you want to get into an unhappy marriage? No. You can get married tomorrow maybe. But if it's an unhappy marriage, what's the use? You'll be miserable. Better to wait 5 years. Better to wait for Mr. Right, or what you think is Mr. Right. But if you wait too long, then you become very judgmental. You say, no, he must be like this, he must be this height, his shoulders must be this breadth, and his hair must be wavy or not wavy or straight, etc., etc. Then you become very picky. So you must know what you want. So that's why this question is asked. It is asked not because they really want to know where you will be in 5 years. They want to know whether you are a person who thinks or whether you're a knee-jerk person. Tap the knee, it jerks. That's not what they're looking for. People are hired for their skills. They're fired for their attitudes. Most organizations let people go because they do not have the right stuff. They are harmful to the organization. Skills we all acquire at this stage of our lives, and you're all equal. But what is that? I keep coming back to character. What part character plays in your makeup is important. So part of the thing when they're asking you is to see whether you have character and you have thought through, or whether you're just doing it because you're doing it for the sake of doing it. You follow what I mean? What's your name?
Gurleen.
Gurleen. Gurleen. Okay. Right. And your name? Shubham. Okay. Right, Gurleen and Shubham, thank you for those questions. Any other questions? I'm sure there must be lots. Yes, Rajnikant.
I'm
Sorry.
sure you must have, you need time to have water.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So I will request the audience to ask a couple of last questions before Sir takes his leave. Another 2 or 3 questions, please. Let's have this lady. Rajnikant has spoken so many times already.
Sir, there was a time when I was out
What's
for
your
the
name?
Sanchi.
Sorry?
Sanchi.
Sanchi.
Yes, sir.
Sanchi as in the place Sanchi.
Yes, sir.
Sanchi. Interesting
That's in
name.
Madhya Pradesh.
Madhya Pradesh Sanchi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sir, there was a time, as in when I used to give interviews for management colleges, and there was a college wherein I was interviewed, and the interviewer, he juggled me so badly, as in not in terms of my academics, not in terms of my other professional things, but on my family matters. And there was a time when I got so confused that all I could do is just close my eyes and say, I am sorry, I said certain things over there. And so I just wanted to ask you that how do you get out of such situations when the interviewer is asking you, as in he's pinpointing you on the questions that you've only answered right now?
Okay. Sanchi, that's an interesting question that you should ask. They're all, like they're good guys and they're bad guys, or good girls and bad girls, they're also good interviewers and bad interviewers. There are some people who have an ego issue. I told you about my first interview, my only interview. Since then I have never been interviewed. I've been recruited directly or whatever it is. There have been informal discussions, but I've never been interviewed. Oh no, sorry, once more. When I came back to India, I was interviewed for my son's school. That's the most rigorous interview I'd had since IBM. They both got in because they're very good students, fortunately. But I made it. Go and read that poem. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, you can trust yourself and all men doubt you, yet make allowance for the doubting too. Remember that there will always be people who will try to get under your skin and needle you. How you manage yourself in good times is easy. How you manage yourself in hard times is what comes back to character. You have to remember to keep a cool head. You have to remember that there will be people whose actions you have no control over. And you have to remember that just like, take recourse in this famous saying that, and this too shall pass. God grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. That's what you should apply. I have to be serene, just accept it. Let him blabber on and on and on. You know, just like he knows, in a minute or two whether he's going to hire you. You know in a minute or two, heart of hearts, whether you're going to be hired. So if he is just playing you because he's bored or because he is that kind of a person, be polite. It does not harm you to be polite under these kind of circumstances. It enhances your stature. When two people are fighting on the street, you don't know who started it. But if the fight never took place in the first place, and one of them walked off and refused to get drawn into an argument, there would be no fight and there would be no question over the person's character. Similarly here, let it pass. Words can never hurt. Yes, there are people like that, unfortunately. No, but he's asking you something that is unacceptable. Correct? From what? Who said you cannot question? Excuse me, all of us have the right. All of us have, read the Constitution, all of us have the God-given right, the freedom of speech, the freedom to decide, the freedom to choose. An interview is a two-way process. Just as much as the interviewer is interviewing you, you, the interviewee, are interviewing the interviewer. Have you ever refused a job? Have you ever turned down an offer? Then you are made of the right stuff. You know what you want. So similarly, that tells you straight away that there's something wrong in that organization if they can put a person like that on the front line and have him interview candidates. Remember, campus recruitment and interviews are also a PR effort by that organization to spread their message. What kind of a message is he portraying or promoting for the organization that he works for? A very poor one. You will tell your friends, everyone will know about it, and you will all shun him. Right? Isn't it? So never lose your cool. You will come into many situations in life where people will, for no apparent reason, refuse you something that is rightfully, or you believe, rightfully should be given to you. But how you, I'll tell you, when I was telling you about my children and the interview that I went through, that I applied to 5 schools in Delhi, except for my old school. And they were accepted in all 5. The one school that I liked very much was, my wife liked the school they finally went to. When I went there, an appointment was made for me to go. She said, no, we only take government servants, they have priority, we have a priority list, etc., civil servants first, and service officers, etc., etc., etc. And I looked and I said, what a lovely school, you know, it reminds me so much of my old school. She said, why didn't you apply your children to this? So I said, well, there are other factors. So I said, okay. And then I said, fine. I knew my children had very, very high marks and were very, very good sportsmen. And I'd made a portfolio. I left it with her and I went away and I came back to my office. I barely stepped into the office when I got a call to say that Mrs. So-and-so has called and asked you to swing by and pick up the prospectus from her secretary. So when I went the next morning, I said, I'll come, can you send your driver or whatever? I said, no, I'll come myself. I went the next morning at 8 o'clock and asked, I said, but Mrs. Eastwood, a lady had said, no. What? She said, no, and because I didn't argue anything, that's precisely why. She said, I must take a look. And when she opened the portfolio and she looked and she saw the kind of results that they had, etc., 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 she said, I must test these children. So they were called for the test and they passed it and they were offered, but we said no. Because my wife decided. The other school, never argue with your wife. You can make all the important decisions like whether to vote for A or B and this party or that party, but those are the important decisions. The other decisions you always leave to your wife, which school your children should go to. So you see, what I'm trying to say is that if I had ranted and raved over there and foamed at the mouth and said, how can it be with these kids, we've come from abroad, we should be getting a priority, blah, 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 nothing would have happened, right? I would have just ticked her off and she would have thought over my dead body. So how you handle that situation when it's a no-win situation with grace, with dignity, that's important, very important. Okay?
Good afternoon, sir.
Right at the back, yes.
Right at the back.
What's your name, by the way? Sanchi, sorry, Sanchi, yes, yes.
So my name is Neha Gupta.
Neha.
Sir, I want to share a little incident which happened with me. I'm a very bad student in maths. I hate maths.
My subject.
So when I gave my 10th board exams, it was the maths exam. When I came back and I wrote a letter to maths that thank you and I tried you a lot and now we cannot be friends anymore. And
What did maths say?
I am still figuring it out.
Must have given you a Pythagorean answer.
I have so stick that paper on my wall and till date it is there. So is it right to quit things or we should try them till the doomsday?
Good question. Good question. Very good question. I am not probably qualified to answer that because I am what many people call DEET. So if you're DEET, you don't quit. You keep battering your head against the wall and because you're determined to overcome it at all cost. To answer your question in two parts, first, maths is very important in life and it is key for good financial management. I'm not talking about finance, but I'm talking about financial management. Because you make certain decisions in business based on the finances, which you're not an expert on, but the decisions are yours. Okay. So numbers are very important. So I would suggest that you write another letter to maths and say that, my dear friend,